about the Indiana Fever more specifically. Now, all three of these entities have responded to the allegation. Erica Wheeler, Kelsey Mitchell, and Caitlin. The allegations made by WNBA players that Indiana Fever fans are vicious, racist. Now, all three of these entities have responded to the allegation. They're just launching racial slurs all over the...
That wasn't just an accusation. That was a declaration of war. While the competitor channels you've seen were busy chasing fabricated clickbait about trade requests, they completely missed the real story. The first shots have been fired in a bitter civil war for the soul of the WNBA. This is a war between the league's old guard and the massive new fan base that has poured in, drawn by the gravity of one player, Caitlin Clark. For weeks, you've been told this is a simple story about fan behavior. Today, we're going to filter out that noise and show you what it really is, a calculated attack by league veterans on the very audience fueling the WNBA's explosion in popularity. And more importantly, we're going to show you how Caitlin Clark, caught in the crossfire, is executing a brilliant counteroffensive to defend her followers and protect the future of the league itself. We're a community of narrative analysts here, and our mission is to uncover the story behind the story. If you believe in that mission, do me a favor and hit that like button. It's a small click that sends a huge signal to us that we're on the right track. To understand how this war started, we have to go back to the inciting incident. The battlefield was the September 2024 WNBA playoffs, a high-stakes series between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. After the Sun eliminated the Fever, Alyssa Thomas, an 11-year league veteran and a core leader for Connecticut, walked up to the podium and fired a shot directly at the Indiana fan base. She stated, quote, "In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. It's unacceptable, honestly. Let's be clear. A player of her stature doesn't make a comment like that lightly. This wasn't a random complaint, it was a targeted strike. She was drawing a clear line in the sand, and on one side were the established veterans, and on the other, the new, chaotic, and unknown force of Caitlin Clark's fan base, and this was only the beginning. An accusation from one veteran is a headline, but when you start connecting the dots, you realize this was a coordinated front. The attack on the new fan base wasn't just coming from Alyssa Thomas, it was a team-wide offensive. During that same playoff series, her Connecticut Sun teammate, DiJonai Carrington, became entangled in the conflict after an accidental eye poke on Caitlin Clark. What followed was horrifying. Carrington took to Instagram, sharing screenshots of graphic emails she had received containing vile racist slurs and explicit threats of violence. The league and the media rightfully condemned this behavior. But here's the dot that the mainstream narrative failed to connect. These two events weren't separate issues. They were two fronts in the same battle. You had one veteran publicly accusing the entire fan base of racism on the record, while another was simultaneously posting evidence of horrific, targeted harassment she was receiving. The result was the perfect storm. It created a powerful, unified narrative that painted the entire new wave of WNBA fandom as toxic, triumphant, racist, and dangerous. It didn't matter if the threats came from a handful of unhinged individuals online. The message from the Sun, the old guard in this story, was clear: the new fans aren't welcome. And they are the problem. With the attack now coming from multiple angles and the media narrative solidifying, the pressure shifted directly onto the person at the center of it all. How would Caitlin Clark respond? Would she condemn her own fans? Would she side with the veterans? What she did next was something no one saw coming. Faced with a full-blown media crisis and a veteran-led campaign painting her supporters as a toxic mob, everyone expected Caitlin Clark to choose a side. Instead, she chose to redefine the entire battlefield. In a masterclass of public relations, she delivered a single, surgically precise statement that completely dismantled the old guard's narrative. When asked about the racism and online abuse, she didn't deflect. She first acknowledged the problem, stating clearly, "I don't think anyone in our league should be facing any sort of racism." But then, she executed the counter-maneuver. She said, quote,
Caitlin Clark spoke about, well, she answered a question about all of the online discourse and trolls, which...
But there are a lot of really good fans, whether they've been fans for 20 plus years or whether they're new fans in our league. You know, those aren't fans, those are trolls, and it's a real disservice to the people in our league, the organization. I think continuing to uplift this league in a very positive light is the best thing that we can do, because...
Let's break down the strategic brilliance of that move for a second. With that one sentence, "Those aren't fans, those are trolls," she accomplished three things at once. First, she validated the experience of players like DiJonai Carrington by condemning the hateful messages. Second, she drew a protective circle around the millions of new, legitimate fans who had poured into the league to support her, refusing to let them be smeared. And third, she reframed the enemy. The problem wasn't the Indiana Fever fan base. The problem was a nameless, faceless, and illegitimate group of online agitators who have no real allegiance to the team or the league. It was a strategic masterstroke. She didn't attack the veterans. She didn't blame the media. She simply took the narrative they had built and surgically removed its foundation. But her defense of the new fan base raises an even deeper question that many of you watching have been asking for weeks. Why was this attack happening in the first place? Why would a group of established WNBA stars risk alienating the very audience that was bringing the league unprecedented wealth and attention? To understand the motive, you have to understand that this isn't just about basketball. This is a culture war. For years, the WNBA has been a league with a very specific and established identity. It's a league where, historically, 70 of the players are black, and it has cultivated a dedicated, core fan base that is deeply invested in its culture and social dynamics. Then came the Caitlin Clark effect. Suddenly, millions of new fans, a demographic wave unlike anything the league had ever seen, crashed into this established ecosystem. And according to a growing sentiment among longtime followers, these new fans don't understand the league's culture. They don't know the history. They don't know the other players. And they bring a completely different set of expectations to the game. From the perspective of the old guard, this isn't just growth, it's an invasion. They see their culture, the one they bled for and built over decades in relative obscurity, being diluted, overshadowed, and potentially erased by a tsunami of newcomers who only care about one player. So when veterans like Alyssa Thomas launch these verbal attacks, it's not just a complaint about a few fans, it's a reaction. It's a desperate pushback against a cultural tide they feel is sweeping them away. It's a way of saying, "This is our house, and you will respect our rules." The attack on the new fans isn't just about what was allegedly said in the stands. It's a symptom of a much deeper fear, the fear of becoming irrelevant in your own league. But that brings us to the most uncomfortable question in this entire conflict. If this is the old guard's justification for the attack, what happens when their primary accusation starts to fall apart under scrutiny? This is where the story takes a sharp turn, and we have to start filtering through the noise of online speculation to get to the core of the problem. Many of you watching have been connecting these same dots on social media, and you were onto something huge. While the old guard's accusations dominated the headlines, a critical piece of counter-evidence emerged that the media has been reluctant to discuss. In May of 2025, a separate but similar incident occurred involving Chicago Sky star Angel Reese, who was also allegedly targeted with racist comments during a game in Indiana. The WNBA, under immense pressure, launched a formal investigation, and what did they find? Nothing. On May 27, 2025, the league concluded its investigation, officially stating they had found no substantiated evidence to support the claims. This outcome threw gasoline on an already raging fire of fan speculation. which suggested that some of these allegations might be exaggerated or even fabricated to generate controversy. Prominent media personalities even began to publicly label the claims as complete nonsense. Now, let's be absolutely clear. This doesn't mean nothing happened, but for the old guard's narrative, it's a catastrophic blow. Their entire attack on the new fan base is built on the foundation of these accusations. When the league's own formal investigation comes up empty, that foundation begins to crumble. It creates an uncomfortable reality where a player's word is pitted against an official report, leaving fans to wonder what the truth really is. So, let me ask you directly, does an official investigation that finds nothing prove the claims were false, or does it just prove how difficult these things are to verify? I'm genuinely curious to see how the analyst community is reading this. This evidence problem puts the entire conflict into a new, far more volatile context because this war isn't just being fought for culture. It's being fought over cold, hard cash. Let's not forget the context in which this culture war is being fought. The WNBA is in the middle of an unprecedented economic boom, and it's almost entirely due to the very fans who are now under attack. They call it the Caitlin Clark effect, but it's more like a revolution. Games featuring Clark are drawing over 2.5 million viewers, numbers that were unthinkable just a couple of years ago. The league is so confident in this new wave of growth that it's expanding with new franchises. For the first time, players are seeing a future with massively increased salaries, chartered flights, and mainstream relevance, all funded by the energy and wallets of this new audience. And this is what makes the old guard's attack so baffling from a strategic standpoint. By declaring war on the new fans, they are actively sabotaging their own financial futures. They are alienating the golden goose. You cannot, on one hand, prepare for historic CBA negotiations to demand a bigger piece of the revenue pie, and on the other hand, attack the very customers who are making that pie bigger in the first place. It is a catastrophically self-defeating strategy, one that reveals the conflict isn't based on logic, but on a deep-seated cultural fear. And it's a conflict that the Indiana Fever's own head coach seems to understand all too well. It's one thing for a player to create a narrative, but it's another for the organization's leadership to validate it. As the controversy raged, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White weighed in, and her words echoed her star player's strategy perfectly. She implicitly backed Clark's distinction between true fans and online agitators, stating, quote, "We have to do a better job. I feel like we have allowed trolls in social media to frame the narrative of what the story is. This is a critical piece of the puzzle." The coach herself is corroborating the core of Clark's defense. She is publicly acknowledging that the story being told isn't the real story, and that the narrative is being hijacked by bad actors online, by trolls. This alignment between coach and player is not an accident. It signals a unified organizational strategy. The Indiana Fever, from the front office to the locker room, understands the stakes. They know their future depends on cultivating and protecting this new fan base, not demonizing it. They are presenting a united front in this culture war, standing with the new wave of fans against the accusations of the old guard. So, when we put all the pieces together, the initial attack, the strategic defense, the cultural motives, the lack of evidence, and the economic stakes, the full picture of this civil war finally comes into focus. So, what is the final verdict? When we filter out all the noise, the picture is undeniable. The explosive accusations of racism against Caitlin Clark's new fan base were never just about fan behavior. They were the opening shots in a desperate culture war for the future of the WNBA. This war is being waged by an old guard of veterans who, fearing their culture and influence is being erased, launched a dangerous attack against the very audience fueling the league's historic rise. Caitlin Clark's defense of her fans wasn't just a savvy media soundbite. It was a strategic move to protect the new economic and cultural engine of the entire sport. She is defending the future, even if it means fighting the past. This story is far from over, and we are tracking every move in this battle for the soul of the WNBA. To make sure you don't miss the next chapter, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. Finally, if you know another fan who only sees the surface-level drama, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves to understand the real war being fought behind the headlines,